Are you thinking about moving to the DC suburbs, but you're not sure if you want to move to Maryland or Virginia? You're not the only one. I get asked this question a whole lot about which side of the river is right for people. There's definitely a lot to consider, and things constantly change. Which one's right for you? But more importantly, what does the future hold for these two very different states? All right, I am Melissa Terzis, DC Real Estate Mama. I've been in the real estate industry here since 2001, and I help people like you buy and sell homes throughout DC, Maryland, and Northern Virginia. So shoot me a message if you want to chat. I'll put my contact info up here. All right, let me do a quick disclaimer. When I speak about Maryland, I'm speaking about Montgomery County. In Virginia, basically, the areas I serve are Arlington, Alexandria, and Fairfax counties. For the most part, I do sell sometimes a little outside these areas, but the bulk of my business is in these areas plus DC proper. So that's just what I kind of want you to basically make sure that you know, so that you don't think like, listen, this doesn't happen in Baltimore or whatever. I don't work up in Baltimore. Okay, so let's get into it. The future of real estate in Maryland and Virginia. Let's start there. There was a day pre-COVID, when large homes and large yards were avoided like the plague. But then the plague arrived, you guys, and it drastically changed what people wanted home to look like. The simple fact that there is more business in Northern Virginia naturally translates to more demand for homes there. I don't expect this to change anytime soon, unless Maryland can somehow start attracting more employers to the state. But that's not going to happen. Do you know why? Maryland ranks 47th out of all 50 states for business operation expenses, meaning 46 states are less expensive than Maryland in which to run a business. So that's that. Maryland ranks 31st overall for business operations on CNBC's 2024 list. Virginia ranked first. In 2025, Virginia did drop to number 4 behind North Carolina, Texas, and Florida. Maryland is at 32. So over in Maryland, there's just less demand per house. There really is also a such thing as overpricing, as we've seen many homes sitting for a month or two in Maryland when they didn't in more pre and even post-COVID competitive days. There's truly no winner here, though, because it does depend on what you're looking for in a lifestyle and a home. I have plenty of clients who look in both Maryland and Virginia, and what it ends up boiling down to is like where the best house and the best schools are for them, plus commute. Like that's what it always boils down to. All right, let's move on to the next section that I'm going to call the outrage. Gas appliances. Do you like gas? I'm not talking about the kind that comes out of your butt. I'm talking about your stove with gas cooking or your car that takes gasoline. Well, if you're in Maryland, watch out. They have banned gas appliances in new construction homes, at least in Montgomery County. And then the ban on gas appliances is supposed to start in 2026. There are lawsuits. There are many lawsuits. And you can bet that Maryland is headed in this direction in some form or fashion. Virginia does have rumblings of conversations regarding like gas leaf blowers, and that was specific to the city of Alexandria, but that's it. That's kind of all that's been heard about. The gas leaf blowers were banned in Montgomery County, Maryland, by the way, as of July 1, 2025. They tried to get an exemption for like commercial landscapers, and Maryland said no. So you can also report people for using gas leaf blowers, and then they'll get fined $500. This sort of big brother is watching, and neighbors who will take pictures and report you. That's kind of common in Montgomery County. They love their laws and regulations, and people love reporting their neighbors for things. This is why we live in DC. So my husband would never live in Virginia because he's from Baltimore, and apparently these two states just do not like each other. I'm not from here, so I don't know. It may be totally inefficient in DC. We might have our government officials get convicted of fraud and embezzlement and then get reelected by the people that they failed. We may have rampant crime, but we aren't Maryland and we know how to drive. All right, so next up is Maryland and Virginia taxes. This is also another area where things sort of are very different. Maryland has a county income tax in addition to state income tax. This is going to add another 3% to your income taxes if you live in Maryland. Virginia has the state income tax. There is no additional taxing at the county level in Virginia when it comes to income. But there are vehicle taxes. So personal property, like vehicles, boats, RVs, planes, Virginia does tax those. The financials seem to work out for many people moving to Virginia, oftentimes for those reasons. This is another reason that housing also remains strong. Now, Maryland does have a strong history of raising taxes and not having a balanced budget. They just instituted a bunch of tax increases. Montgomery County specifically increased recordation taxes for properties above $500,000. So like almost all of them. Yes. Virginia currently has a Republican governor who has proposed reductions on income taxes and the personal property tax, but they really do still get you in Virginia because they've got all kinds of other taxes like congestion relief on real estate transfers, and that tax can go into the thousands. All right, let's do one of my favorite topics next. Public schools. So CNBC also ranks education. So I just looked at that list to see what they were saying. Maryland is at number 11. Virginia's at number 1. You really can't beat that. So both states have great schools. Let's start with Maryland's public schools in Montgomery County. Goody, this is exciting. Montgomery County Public Schools, I'm going to call them MCPS, has had several rough years. I'm kind of putting that lightly. I put out a video earlier this year about all the current issues at play. I covered the prior superintendent, the lack of reporting on repeated sexual harassment issues, weapons in the school, and the loss of some really great teachers because of everything that was happening. I got a lot of calls and emails from people who just live in the county, saw the video, and said, thank you, like somebody needed to say it. Why not me? I've got a big mouth. Anyway, the new superintendent has been in his job for a year now. New superintendent is on the side of more transparency and having more decisions made at the school level and not the administrative level. Okay, so far so good. This is great. Changes are being implemented this next school year. One big change that everybody's going to see in Montgomery County is the grading policy. MCPS has been rounding up grades, and might I say, very generously. Let's just take an example of 2 semesters, right? Or 2 quarters where a student earned an A in one quarter and then a D in the second quarter. They would round the D up to a C, and that student would have a B average once everything was rounded. They also had what they called a minimal effort grade of 50%, which essentially means you put your name on the paper and you hand it in and they give you 50% credit. The 1980s are calling. The teachers from the 1980s want to kill everything that's happening right now. I think the teachers now want to kill it as well. People can't do it, let's just lower the bar. Whatever. MCPS also revised their code of conduct, strengthening punishments for certain infractions. No more can you call in a bomb threat or assault a teacher and be punished at the level 1 slap on the hand. This would automatically elevate your punishment to a level 4 or 5. And they obviously matriculate through level 1 to 5, depending on severity. Coming up later this year, the school board in Montgomery County is going to vote on what they are calling a new regional model for school choice and academic programs so that the offerings are spread out in a better way geographically. The high schools would be divided into groups, and then each group would offer 1 to 2 different program themes. The themes are going to include things like IB, STEM, leadership, public service, humanities, language, and arts. Another huge potential would be that the 2 high school consortia that they have right now would also convert to this regional model. The consortia is basically groups of high schools. So there's like a down county one that's got 6 high schools in it and an up county one that I think has 3 high schools in it. But students who live within the boundary of any of those schools in the consortia have a preference for going to a different school depending on what their programming might be and what they're interested in. Now let's go to scandals. So as far as scandals, there have been a few big ones. The school district paid $1.3 million to the last superintendent a year ago who resigned after criticism of mishandling a long-running sexual harassment issue with one of the school's principals. Then this summer, the principal of BCC, Bethesda Chevy Chase, but we will call it BCC from now on, resigned. BCC has had several rough years on his watch. Let's see. There were bomb threats. There were students with weapons at school. There were lockdowns. There were several times that you'd be in Bethesda and there's helicopters flying all over, and it was all traced back to BCC and something that happened there. Now there's a lawsuit that just recently cost the school board $518,000. This is because the principal of BCC heard a little story from students and went off kind of half-cocked, sent a letter to the entire school community, families, teachers, everybody, saying that this teacher made a racist comment and that it was a, quote, hate bias incident. Except the principal made up part of the quote and admitted that in court. That teacher, by the way, went on to teach at Whitman. Good for him. I'm also proud of him for filing a lawsuit and for, winning, which is great. The principal who resigned is now an assistant principal at a middle school. So that tells you how that worked out. Let's move to public schools in Virginia because that was exhausting. All Northern Virginia schools right now are under investigation by the Department of Education for their policy of allowing students to use the bathroom of the gender that they identify with, not the one that they were assigned at birth. Do with that what you will. Northern Virginia has had quite a few issues with this, especially somebody that said they identified as one and then assaulted somebody in the bathroom, and there's been problems. So do with that what you will. Fairfax County, let's go there. Fairfax County is installing weapons detectors at all county high schools this year. It's happening right now as we speak in the summer of 2025. There were weapons detectors at just 5 high schools, which is how a student was able to stab a classmate at West Potomac High this past year. All high schools will now have metal detectors to detect weapons as of the upcoming school year. The big news, though, here is the redistricting process. So the way it was first set up was an immediate school change unless the student was going into 12th grade. Then they were able to stay at their current school. Now what they're doing is more of a phase-in system so that anybody who has a couple of years left at a school can remain there even if they've been redistricted. So if you're in like 4th and you just need to finish 5th, they're not immediately changing your school. They would let you continue there. That's still in the works. So you have to kind of stay tuned to see what happens there. Now let's go to Arlington. Over in Arlington, they just arrested an instructional aide who is alleged to have had sexual contact with a student at Washington Liberty High School. Wash, rinse, repeat. This is a repeat of what happened at Wakefield High School in late 2024. Different aide, different school, different student, same crime. The school board for Arlington Public Schools right now currently doesn't have like the years of experience that other school boards may. There's 5 of them. 2 members were new in 2025, and the other 3 have 3 years or less. One of those 3 is actually not seeking re-election this year. Okay. Arlington Public Schools is reported to spend the most per student of all of the Northern Virginia counties, but it also has the highest proportion of administrators to students compared to other counties. So Arlington is very top-heavy, maybe more so than it needs to be, but smaller districts also have similar administrator to student ratios like Arlington, whereas Loudoun and Prince counties are not as top-heavy per student. All right, so let's move on now to Alexandria City Public Schools. All right, you guys, it's not great over here. So the district has lagged here behind all others in Northern Virginia for years. There are always chances for it to improve, and then it doesn't. The elephant in the room, in my opinion, is the high school. The city has only one high school, and the enrollment across grades 9 through 12 4,500 students. That isn't a high school. That's like a college campus or like a small town. So you can see a great recap of the most current issues by referencing the letter that the PTSA, that's the Parent Teacher Student Association, sent to Alexandria City Public School Board. Quote, our concerns are more broadly about an emerging pattern of behavior by central office that has resulted in high levels of turnover within Alexandria City Public Schools over the past 2 years. This includes the loss of 7 veteran principals, 2 of whom left immediately after winning Principal of the Year accolades, as well as an alarming number of staff at the Chance for Change campus, and a consistent outflow of science, long-term English language learner, and special education teachers to adjacent districts Arlington and Fairfax. We are concerned not only by the loss of Principal Duncan, but by a pattern of indifference from central office that harms retention and recruitment at Alexandria City High School and across the division. As one city councilman has noted, quote, "This level of turnover signals something fundamentally broken in ACPS's central office. Reform is badly needed." Guys, that should tell you what you need to know. I would not count on Alexandria schools to turn around at any point soon without some sort of incredible come to Jesus meeting of the minds. There you have it. The latest about what is expected for the future of Maryland and Virginia. I hope that helps you make your decision on where you want to focus your search. My contact info, if you have any questions, is coming next.